Welcome back to the Healthy Orange Movie Reviews. I'm your host, Bennett Campbell Ferguson, and this is part 2 in a 10-part series about my favorite films of the 2000s. Tonight's topic, Darren Aronofsky's 2006 masterpiece, The Fountain. If you don't know the story of The Fountain, it's a bit difficult to explain, but what it boils down to is this. It's the story of Tom Creo, a scientist played by Hugh Jackman, who is searching for a way to cure his wife, Izzy, who's dying of a brain tumor. But the movie is not quite as simple as that. It actually weaves 3 stories together, and in all of them the main characters are played by Mr. Jackman. There's also a story set in the past in which he plays a Spanish conquistador looking for the Tree of Life, and then there's also a futuristic tale woven in which he's an astronaut searching for a dying star. But what binds these stories together is the search for eternal life. All of these tales deal in some way with immortality and the hero's obsession with it. But more on that later. The main portion of the film is devoted to the contemporary part about Tom and his quest to save Izzy. We begin with him discovering a compound that may or may not be able to cure brain tumors or may potentially even lead to discovering the secret of immortality. But what's important to know is that The Fountain is not really about science or medicine or even science fiction. At its heart, it's really a drama and an adventure. The drama comes from the fact that this being a story about a man trying to save the woman he loves, it's a tragic, overwhelming, and beautiful love story about someone who's obsessed with trying to fight fate, trying to undo what he knows can't be undone, and in the process is slowly being destroyed by his obsession. And then the adventure part comes from the fact that this is an incredibly fascinating and mysterious film. One of the most interesting things about Darren Aronofsky's direction is that he never allows you to know just exactly what's going on. There's always an air of mystery. In fact, of the 3 stories, of the story of the conquistador, of the scientist, of the astronaut, we don't know if one of them is real, if some of them are dreams, or if any of them are real or dreams. They all seem to exist as some sort of surreal continuum that's interconnected. And we see this through a number of visual devices that connect them together. For example, the scientist, Tom, in one shot he's seen driving his SUV towards a city. But then, in the past, we see a conquistador riding toward we see not a conquistador, the conquistador, as played by Mr. Jackman. We see him riding his horse toward a castle in a shot that exactly mimics the shot of the scientist, are you getting as confused as I am, driving his SUV toward the city. So there are all sorts of visual pairings that unite the 3 stories and make the 3 really feel like one, and essentially 3 different versions of the story of the search for eternal life and the corruptive power of that obsession. But one of the things that you have to understand about The Fountain is that while the drama is important, the story is important, you can't underestimate its power as a magnificent and beautiful spectacle. There are some simply wonderful and amazing images that truly are magical. This is more beautiful than almost any other fantasy film that you could have you could imagine seeing in this decade or even in the past century. For example, there's a scene in the past where the conquistador goes to receive instructions from the Queen of Spain. And it begins with this magnificent shot in which the doors open to her throne room. These massive dark doors. But once the conquistador enters the room, it's filled with light. Amidst these tall boulders, or pillars, excuse me, there are these lamps, these round spherical lamps that almost seem to be floating in the air, and it's a magnificent, beautiful spectacle. Not only because of the production design by James Chinland, which is truly, truly extraordinary. Fun fact: James Chinland was also the production designer on The Avengers, but who cares? Again, the fountain's beauty goes beyond set design. This moment where the conquistador walks into the throne room is complemented by Clint Mansell's score, which is made up of these eerie, strange sounding strings that are rather minimalist and quiet. And as the conquistador walks down the hall, there's a sense of the surreal that I find incredibly thrilling. You don't know what this place is. Is it real, or is it some kind of figment of the imagination of another character in the story? But its atmosphere is just so overwhelmingly compelling. To see a man walk through that set toward the Queen's throne is this kind of slow, drawn out, poetic thing that just keeps you transfixed. And you stay transfixed throughout the film, because the fountain is almost relentlessly beautiful. Mr. Aronofsky's visual style is it's very interesting because he goes for strange angles that at once disorient you and simultaneously bring you closer to the movie, make it more real. One recurring motif, for example, is a scene where Tom kisses Izzy on the neck, but the camera is so close that her skin almost completely fills the frame, and on top of that you have these exaggerated but really beautiful sound effects that kind of amplify sort of the soft scraping of Tom's lips against the hairs on Izzy's neck. So you get it's kind of disorienting, because how often do you see something like that on film? But at the same time, being so close, seeing so much detail, it makes it more real. It makes the film come alive and feel tactile in a way that many films don't. That said, I do not want to shortchange the fact. I don't want to give the impression that the fountain is some kind of pure spectacle. One of the expressions right now that I hate, absolutely hate, is the phrase pure cinema. A lot of people say that about Gravity, and to me, pure cinema is people's way of saying, it's very beautiful, but there's nothing to it. And in the case of Gravity, I of course disagree. It's a brilliant character study, in addition to being a thriller, but that's a story for a completely different video. But the thing is, I would not call The Fountain pure cinema, and I mean that in the best possible way. It's a story about a man who's deeply in love. Tom, the scientist, in his quest to discover some kind of miraculous cure that can cure Izzy's brain tumor, in his quest to do this, he tragically slowly pulls away from her, immersing himself more in his work. So there's the sad part of the story that he's trying to save her, but he's wasting precious time he could be spending with her before she finally and inevitably dies. And so we get here the emergence of one of Mr. Aronofsky's favorite themes, which is that by being obsessive, we miss the moment. We miss our lives. We miss our connections, the connections we can have with the people around us. And this is, in a sense, Tom and the other characters played by Mr. Jackman in the film are set up as villains of a sort, because the movie makes us understand that the pursuit of immortality is really a foolish quest, that it's the kind of tense, obsessive battle that perhaps is ultimately fought for kind of macho reasons, to prove something, and which makes Mr. Jackman perfect for the role, because who but Wolverine could embody macho strength like that? But the thing is that Mr. Jackman is an incredibly sincere actor. In all his films, he never forgets. He never lets you forget that the characters he's playing are capable of great compassion, and that goes for The Fountain as well. There's a scene towards the end of the film where he's sitting alone in his bedroom with him looking just completely miserable, his eyes red, his face poured over with anguish, and just seeing him there alone sobbing, you understand the depths of his misery, a misery he's driven himself to, but also the depths of his love and what he's losing because his wife is dying. Or, well, spoiler alert, by this point she has died. But the thing is that I would not say The Fountain is exactly a tragedy. It's a journey. It's about a theme which is stated multiple times throughout the film, that death is the road to awe. A number of characters say this. And while that's sort of a grand, sweeping statement that in a lot of ways is there to sound cool, it also speaks to what really matters in the movie. And what matters is each character that Mr. Jackman plays, what matters is that they're all slowly going to the point where they can move beyond their obsessions and accept the reality of death, and accept impermanence and the fact that immortality is something that while potentially attainable, there'll always be one more roadblock in the way of it. Even when it seems in reach, there will be some twist of circumstance that will always make it unreachable. And so as the film goes toward this realization and helps the characters discover and accept death, we get an amazing and tragic catharsis. And so we end the film with kind of the glory, the excitement of Mr. Jackman's characters all shrugging off their obsessions, shrugging off the quest for immortality, and just embracing life even as they face death. But the truly wonderful thing about the movie is that it understands how tempting obsession is and how obsession can stem from love. And as we near the end, and as Tom says goodbye to Izzy for the final time, we see the love that has driven his obsession more than ever before, and it is truly as sad and tragic as it is beautiful and moving at the same time. And the same is true of The Fountain. It is like so many great movies, a movie that is made to overwhelm you, to wash over you, to overpower you, to change your emotional state, to leave you in awe, leave you perhaps feeling a little more sober, and just give you a chance to let the tragic emotions that get pent up inside of all of us out. Well, that concludes my piece on The Fountain. Please watch it. It's an amazing movie. It's also only about 95 minutes long, so it won't take too much time out of your evening to see how amazing Darren Aronofsky and Hugh Jackman and the whole crew, editor Jay Rubinowitz, cinematographer Matthew Libatique, it won't take that long to see how incredible they all are. And be sure to come back in about 1 week, in which I talk about Harry Potter, years 3 through 5. Thank you very much, and good night.